Hello, for this particular session, we're going to talk about the right to self-organization. And from the start, whenever we talk about the importance of determining the existence of employer-employee relationship, we have always mentioned that one of the reasons why we need to know whether a person shall be considered as a worker is because only workers or only employees may exercise the right to self-organization. In the same breath, we also noted that only employees may be extended benefits granted under the labor code as well as existing laws, rules, and regulations. So, it is the primordial consideration actually on why we need to determine whether one person may be considered as the employee of another. Now, why do we unionize? First and foremost, there is strength in numbers. We always point out that the interests of the individual worker will best be served if uh, they have numbers. So, 'di ba? Parang hindi po pwede na mag-isa ka lang, 'di ba? Mahirap na pakinggan ka ng ating capital or ng ating management if mag-isa ka lang. So, your interest will best be protected, your welfare will be promoted if you are in a group, 'di ba? So, parang ano yan, parang sinasabi natin, united we stand, divided we fall. And that is very true in the case of our workers. Remember that they are always at a disadvantage. Why? Because the management can dictate whatever they want or they need for their operations, so we just need or we just offer our services to them. So parang paano naman, 'di ba? Paano naman if you want to better the terms and conditions of your employment? And that's why this is the reason why we form unions, through the exercise of the right to self-organization. Now, who may unionize? For purposes of asking for better terms and conditions of employment, which is part and parcel, of course, of collective bargaining. Then, generally, any employee, beginning from the first day of his or her employment, may already join the union. And that's why in a lot of cases, if you will remember, whenever we discuss certification, election, whether this person may form part of a union, lagi natin tinitingnan, are you an employee? Okay. So, we determine first if that person is an employee, and once it is determined, then parte ba siya appropriate bargaining unit. Okay? But the exercise itself of the right to self-organization is of course essential to this. Okay. Now, when we talk about the right to join a union or to form a union, this includes the right not to join. And this is based on the landmark case of Victoriano versus Elizalde Rope Workers Union. Okay? So, in this case, Victoriano was member of the Iglesia ni Cristo, and his religious beliefs forbade him from joining a union. So he resigned from his employment, and because there's a union security clause in the collective bargaining agreement between the management of the Elizalde rope factory, the union requested that Victoriano be removed from employment, be dismissed or terminated from employment by the management, following that union security clause. However, of course, the management dismissed Victoriano, but Victoriano filed a complaint for illegal dismissal, questioned the decision, and he invoked his religious beliefs. And in this particular case, the Supreme Court upheld the right of Victoriano not to join the union due to his religious beliefs. And that's why we now say that the right to self-organization, the right to join a union, includes the right not to join. Okay? And for this reason, in his case, he was reinstated to his former position, and he was no longer compelled to join the union under that union security clause. Okay? Now, how do we form a union? Okay? and who may form a union. So number one, managerial employees may not form a union. That is one exception. The government workers may form a union or may form an association. However, they do not have the right to organize themselves for concerted action, because the terms and conditions of employment of our government workers, no, civil servants like myself, is governed not by the collective bargaining agreement. No, it's a subject to negotiation. However, it is subject to civil service laws, rules, and regulations. So we can unionize, we can form associations, no, but we cannot go on strike. Okay, so there's a limitation to that particular right, and we cannot ask for better terms and conditions of employment that may violate, no, the terms already stated in civil service laws, rules, and regulations. Now, what about the supervisory, no, employees? Can they join a union? Can they form a union? They can form a union, but they cannot join the rank and file. Okay, so they can form a separate union, but they cannot join the rank and file. That is the rule in our jurisdiction. Now, what else? Managerial cannot join. Confidential employees, no, due to the doctrine of necessary implication, cannot also join or form a union. Then the supervisory can form a union, but it must be separate from the rank and file. But take note that they can have, no, the same mother union. Okay, so they can belong to the same mother union, but the rank and file union must be separate and distinct from that of the supervisory union. Now, what else? The employees of our international organizations may also not form union, and aliens working, no, in the Philippines, no, with a valid permit, no, may form, but they cannot, those without any permit may not join the union. Okay. Now, another thing, no, in relation to the right to self-organization is the so-called labor organization. Okay. When we say labor organization, we have the labor organizations as opposed to legitimate labor organizations. And what is the difference between a simple labor organization and a legitimate labor organization? It's all a matter of registration. So, if you form a labor organization, then it is treated as a mere association. However, when we talk about legitimate labor organization, you have gone through the process of registration. Okay, so it is a requirement for you to be considered as a legitimate labor organization. You can be what? You can form independently a union in your workplace, or you can be a chapter, no, of a national federation. So for instance, Kilusang Mayo Uno would have a chapter, let's say, in that particular workplace. So that's okay. Okay, so you can be an affiliate of that mother union. Or you can also make an independent or create or establish an independent labor union. Okay. Now, of course, what do we use in relation to union registration? We have the department order issued by the Department of Labor and Employment in relation to union registration, and we do not attack, no, the validity of a union registration collaterally. Okay, so when we say it is not possible to collaterally attack, so there must be a direct attack. Okay, you cannot question the legality or legitimacy of the labor union in a different or in another proceeding. So you must question it in a direct attack. Okay, now what may be a ground for your cancellation of our union registration. So misrepresentation, of course, no, such as false statements or fraud in connection with the adoption or ratification of the Constitution and bylaws, or amendments of the Constitution and bylaws of the Union, and also the list of members who took part in the ratification. Then another thing is the misrepresentation, false statements, or fraud in connection with the election of the officers, minutes of the election of officers, and the list of voters. And then finally, voluntary dissolution by the members may also be a ground for cancellation of union registration. So these are the only grounds that you may use. Again, you must directly attack the union registration or the validity of that labor organization's registration. You cannot attack it collaterally, meaning in another or separate proceeding. Okay, so before, there are other grounds, but these are no longer being used, no? So we are more lenient nowadays with our union registration, because we would like to motivate more workers to unionize, no, to organize the establishments rather than to remain unorganized. Okay, so we have the organized versus unorganized establishments. When we say organized, there is a legitimate labor organization. There, unorganized, there's no existing legitimate labor organization in the plant or in that particular establishment. Okay, so what else? So before, there was also this ground that, let's say, in that particular union, no, of rank and file employees, some supervisory employees were included. Before, the inclusion of these supervisory employees is considered as a violation and therefore a ground to cancel the union registration. However, as I've said before, that is already no longer ground, and because we are now more lenient, we would like to strengthen unionism rather than defeat its very purpose. Because if we have more grounds for union cancellation, then we defeat the purpose of allowing our workers to exercise their right to self-organization and validly establish for themselves a union in their workplace. So, push tayo lagi na mag-unionize. Diba? So, mas pinaluluwag natin ang ating mga rules. Okay? Rather than, discourage our workers. Kasi diba, the more requirements that we have, the more no-nos that we have in our rules, the more grounds for cancellation, the more that we discourage our workers from unionizing, the more that we make it difficult for them to actually organize. So, tinanggal na natin, karamihan na yan. So, most of the grounds would really be about misrepresentation and false statements. So, even the failure to submit some reportorial requirements, which was previously a ground for cancellation of registration, is no longer a ground nowadays. Okay? So, mas maluwag na. Okay. What else? Okay. So, again, one way for us to unionize is to be an affiliate of a bigger union. So as I mentioned earlier, parang Kilusang Mayo Uno, so you can affiliate yourself and be a chapter of the union. Now, what is the relationship between the mother union and the local union? Okay. So let me read, no. In the one particular case, no, I think this is Filipino Pipe and Foundry Corporation. So it was noted by the court that at this juncture, it is important to clarify the relationship between the mother union and the local union. Okay? The court held in an earlier case that the mother union, acting for and in behalf of its affiliate, had the status of an agent, while the local union remained the basic unit of the association. So, mas importante pa rin, okay, yung local union. So, it is free to serve the common interest of all its members, subject only to the restraints imposed by the Constitution and bylaws of the association. So, the mother federation, no, being a mere agent, and the local or chapter union is the principal, then nasusunod pa rin ay si local union, and it can disaffiliate. Okay? So, a labor union may disaffiliate from the mother union to form a local or independent union. Okay? So, walang pilitan, di ba? Kung gusto nang umalis, pwedeng umalis. Okay. But what happens to, let's say, an existing CBA, if there's a CBA and the local union decided to, the chapter rather decided to disaffiliate, then the substitutionary doctrine will apply. Okay, so even if there is an existing collective bargaining agreement, the employees can change the agent, no, meaning the union, but the contract continues to bind them up to its expiration date. So this is a warning to our unions na disaffiliation will not be a reason for them to disavow a particular CBA. Baka akala kasi nila, okay, mag-disaffiliate kami so that we are free to negotiate a new CBA. No, okay? So, the CBA will continue to exist during its lifetime. Okay? Hindi mababago yun, even if you decide to disaffiliate. Of course, you can disaffiliate because, again, part of the right to organize, to form a union, is the right not to join or to disaffiliate from the union, the mother union that you were formally affiliated with. But, okay, it doesn't mean that you can use this in order to disavow or revoke the existing CBA. Okay, but can they ask that this be shortened? Yes. Okay, kunwari sobrang haba pa, they can request, but if the request is not granted, then the CBA will subsist. So that ends our discussion on the basic principles on the right to self-organization. And for the next short lecture, we're going to talk about the so-called bargaining unit and what makes it appropriate, and then we're going to also go into the principles governing the certification election proceedings. Thank you.